I'd like to call the meeting to order for the City of Kemah City Council and Kemah Public Facilities Corporation and Kemah Public Facilities Transportation Corporation. It's August 19th, 2015 at 7 p.m. First thing we have on is our pledges, which, whoa, where is Sylvia? I guess I'll lead the pledge then.
Citizens of Kemah vote on whether or not we have a parking garage. The previous mayor promised he would put the garage on the ballot. He did not. Instead, it was pushed through. It is not right that 5 people are making a 40-year commitment without our input. I realize we have already spent a lot of money. You are elected to represent the voters and make decisions without consulting us on every little matter. But this goes way beyond ordinary day-to-day running of the city. I know most, if not all of you, are for it. That is your personal choice, and you would have the same right to vote as everyone else. Please give us that right. Thank you.
Okay, Matt Williams. I'm putting time on you.
Well, y'all didn't let me respond to Barry last time, so I demand equal time, but not tonight. Handed out a packet tonight, and I did this. We didn't get a chance to talk about it last week. We were out. Last week was more of a legal week, and this is going to be more of a practical week. But I handed out a packet. The first page is Kemah Transit Center adding 28 parking places. What's the point? You'll see a parking study on here, and I've gone through 9-foot wide parking places, 10-foot wide parking places, using the right of way and not using the right of way. And it's kind of self-explanatory, you know, the things we can do with it. But with 2 one-ways coming in, we should be able to use the right-of-way on 6th and 7th for parking without slowing up traffic at all. So you end up with a net of 28 parking places for the price of the garage. But I've gone through every number, whether they're 9-foot or 10-foot wide parking places. You'll see the map, how it's done. Those are all according to code. The second document is a Kemah Transit Center, Voodoo Economics. It has a bunch of examples on there about what happens based on various levels of occupancy of the garage. At our last City Council meeting, Gulf Coast admitted that there was a $10,836,000 ambiguity in the agreements between Gulf Coast City Center and the city. I've examined the financials supplied by Gulf Coast Center. It looks like our losses will be at least $50,000 per year until there is 48% capacity. And that's 236 cars per day, 365 days of the year. Since that parking lot fills up less than 20 days a year, one can only guess how long the $50,000 per year loss will continue. The $50,000 a year loss is what we're getting off that parking lot right now from Landry's. That will continue at least for 10 or 12 years. I cannot imagine it not continuing at least that long, maybe longer. The Gulf Coast Center has supplied 4 sets of numbers on the parking garage revenue. On November 1st, 2012, they stated in their presentation to council that gross revenue would be $414,000. It comes from table 9-3 of their presentation to the city. And they also, in table 9-4, they had produced $665,168. I don't know what the difference is. You can't tell whether that includes a transient stuff or just the parking garage stuff. Work with either number, it doesn't really matter. On August the 6th of 2014, Gulf Coast Center represented that net revenue would be between $500,000 and $800,000. Now that is net revenue. And based on what the definition is in some of the documents that we've looked at, and though some of them are incomplete and most of them are ineffective, that number of net revenue would be split between the city and Gulf Coast Center. If you assume the cost estimates are even close, which I don't think they are, and note the following observations at $6 per car. On the $800,000, which is the highest number they've given us of net revenue, okay? The Kemah Transit Center would have to be filled at 110% of capacity for 365 days of the year to reach the $800,000 net revenue number. In other words, it's impossible. Mr. Goodman stood right there. I have a tape of it, and he stated that that would be the net revenue between $500,000 and $800,000. They're all up there lapping it up. You know, oh yeah, that sounds great. It does sound great. But when you go look at the numbers, and their cost numbers, I'm working off what they supplied in their book. $800,000, it would have to be filled to capacity 110%, 365 days of the year. At the $500,000 net revenue number, that'd be filled at 83% for 365 days of the year. Go down there tonight and see how many cars are parked there. If you went down last night, there was no cars parked there. We use it about 20 days out of the year. We're a long way from money on this deal. Going back to their November 1st of 2012 presentation, gross revenue was $414,000. That's 38% of capacity every day of the year. Based on what's going, you know, all the numbers, and there's some details. There's some details in the sheet, in the spreadsheet. They'll show you each level, and I've kind of marked it off how everything works. Our loss at $414,000 under today's numbers, not counting the $10 million we got rid of between tonight and last meeting. Our loss is $45,950. That's what we lose, you know, based on our deal with Landry's. If gross revenue is $665,000, we need to average 61% capacity of the garage every day. That's 304 cars per day, 365 days a year. And at that level, the city makes $79,000. I have one last point. May I make it right quick? On the City Hall, I have a $1,000 reward for anybody that can find me a bigger city hall in a smaller town in the state of Texas. Cash money. I challenge anybody. Wayne, wake up over there. You want $1,000? Go find one. We need a city hall down there like we need a hole in our head. Thank you.
Doug Davenport.
I'd just like to address the council, let them know I'm here tonight, flew in yesterday. If you have any questions, I'm on the agenda tonight for the Gulf Coast Festivals for the Oktoberfest. I'm here to answer any of the questions that the council may have.
Thanks, Doug. Kathy Bowman.
Thank you for your time. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Sorry, but this is also about the transportation center. On the 18th of March, council voted for option A for the transportation center. And in May, when our new mayor took office, it got delayed for 5 months and new options were generated that cost the city already $40,000. And I was just wondering if that money is going to be reimbursed somehow. Thank you.
Okay. That's our list. Now for council member comments and announcements.
Well, thank everybody for coming tonight. For those who have school-age kids, before we meet again, CCIC will be re-upping and everybody moving through. So you used to traffic all over, and hope everybody's had a great summer. You've heard some things this evening. You'll probably hear some more tonight. There's a variety of very good answers for most of the things that have been said about the transportation center. How much we're going to delve into each of those tonight, but I just want to reiterate what I said before, for those who weren't here before, that going through this process is not without danger for not just our current situation, but for future situations in the city of Kemah. And I think, I'm hoping that when items are put to bed tonight, that to hash out the distinctions between the agreements for, get rid of issues that were concerning about dates and times, and extending as necessary to work properly to get all these agreements in place. And I'm hoping for those folks who just, no matter what is said, or how often it is said, or with what amount of logic or persuasion is available, is simply going to be against us no matter what. Okay. There's always going to be some folks that think that the project is bad. I thought the right way at 6th Street was a bad idea, and I was proven wrong. And I hope those that follow this closely will help us make it the best one we can. And I hope that you'll come to see that there was reasons to express concern, but there's also reasons to sit back and let things work the way that your council has already voted to have it work. And I hope that those who don't like this will understand that representative democracy is in action right now. And we're way too down the line to start continuing to reopen something that's pretty much been settled. So I have to say that because I probably won't bring it up during that component of the meeting tonight, but I think it's important to realize the Houston, the Austin Area Council is the area where we are putting ourselves at risk right now doing these kinds of things. We're bringing this kind of topic up for something we have already signed off on, in which if we're going to be put to a vote, these kind of things should have been done 2+ years ago. Now is not the time. The train is on the tracks, folks. This is not the time to figure out whether or not we want to ride a train. It's a little too late.
Robin?
I don't have any comments.
Bill?
I don't have any comments.
Wanda?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm also on the CLEMC, our Clear Lake Emergency Medical Corps Board, and they have adopted their new budget for the next year. Their budget has increased, but they have managed things in a way that our assessment fee is not going to increase. It will still remain at $133,958, which we are very lucky, considering the fact that our runs have increased tremendously. The majority of them, of course, is the boardwalk, and the majority of them we have no transport, but we still have to pay our part of the assessment, and it is added. It's a mark on us, and it adds up every time we have a transport. So the boardwalk is getting a nice little ride. The other thing is the Foster Park, the West Kemah Foster Park. Unless it continues to rain tremendously, we're going to actually pour concrete on Thursday for the slab for the pavilion. Hopefully it all goes well, and we need the rain. I mean, this is kind of hard to say, as bad as we need the rain. I don't want it to rain too much. So hopefully we'll be getting that. And I haven't really said much about the parking garage. I know that in the beginning and everything that I was probably a big supporter of it. I initially had felt like that it was something that the city should have voted on because of the tremendous amount of change that it was going to bring to the city. I was convinced that this council should not have to go through that they should make all the decisions. And unfortunately, I did go along with it. But due to the last few weeks of looking at documents and seeing where there's discrepancies and where there has not been very much openness as to how it was all, how we got there and how things have happened, I think it needs to go for a vote. And I know that my vote on that isn't going to say much, but I just want everyone to know that I feel like it should go for a vote. I have lost the confidence in the people that's involved in it. And I don't feel like I'm ready to go forward. So, thank you very much.
Ron?
No comment.
Okay, I just have just a couple for the mayor comments. If you'll recall, one of my first meetings, we talked about the fact that we need to go through a 3.5-hour emergency management training. And you know, it's getting close to September, which seems to be the big hurricane month. So my question to you all is do we want to do that starting like at 6 o'clock one evening and go to 9:30? Or would you rather give up the Saturday morning and go like from 8 to 11:30? So, comments on that?
I'll take an evening.
Yeah, I'm going to do evening.
Evening? Okay. So, you know, we're going to be having meetings for coming up here every Wednesday night for a while, so I'll try and get that in sometime, but we really need all of us to be here so that, you know, we don't have to go through that again. And then just kind of mark your calendars, our first meeting in September, which is September 2nd. I'm going to try and set the agenda as short as possible so that we can start our process of reviewing resumes for our city administrator. Okay, and in our budget workshop next week that we're doing with KCDC, I'd like to review with you the new organizational charts that Ron Cox has been working for us that will affect the budget if we move forward with those charts.
Could you repeat that date and time again, please?
It would be September 2nd, right, Marvin? Which is the first Wednesday, our normal meeting.
Would we expect to get those resumes prior to that to review, or is it going to be here you are, read up?
Ron has gone through and has been kind of reviewing them for us, and he's kind of starring like 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, which I think right now we have as many as 40 of them. So he suggests, because he's going to be there that night to help lead us through this, that he bring those and that we go over them together, so where everyone hears the same thing. And I know it's going to be a little time consuming, but I think it's extremely important that we're all involved in this process. And then Dave,
That was at what time?
it'll be at 7.
At 7, during the regular meeting.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we're going to cut the meeting hopefully short so that we can get on that. But Ron was suggesting that we do this in executive session.
You can do that. Is there a possibility we can start at 6?
I'm okay with that.
I have no problem with 6.
Sounds okay.
So I guess we'll post the agenda then for 6 if everyone will remember that.
How we
Mr.
stand
Zinn?
though to start on the resumes at 6 or start on the council?
No, I think we
meeting
do
at
this,
6?
we're probably gonna have a public hearing that night also
Yes,
on
sir.
the budget. So we'll probably immediately start with the,
We published in the paper that the budget public hearing will be held at 7 o'clock Monday. We already have run that ad.
Okay, so if we go ahead and post another meeting prior to that, we can do that, right?
correct.
Correct.
And
We
do that
just know.
just as a executive session only?
Kevin, on this side, on this issue?
Resolution.
Yeah, you could.
So we can come in and have a meeting at 6, have a public hearing at 7 on the budget, and then go on through with our agenda as.
Yeah, just follow you however you post it.
Well, but we may have to go back into executive session
Right,
and
finish
finish.
up.
If you need to, you can do that. You can break it in half if you need to. You
That
can.
might be a nice break, but,
That sounds good to me.
okay. So we'll start at 6 and we'll go immediately into executive session, break at 7, come back out, have our hearing, public hearing, and then we'll have
Reconvene.
reconvene and then have our meeting. Okay. That's all I have right now. City administrator update, Ron Cox is not here. He's not really under contract to be at our meetings, but I just want y'all to know he's been a really joy to work with and very professional and really is adding a lot to this process of reading through resumes. And I think we'll all enjoy working with him on the second as we start this process to try and cull this down to maybe 3 to 5 people that we would interview. Okay, please, Chief, report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just remind everybody, Wayne already mentioned, school starts back on Monday. School zones will be back into effect 7:30 to 8:30 in the mornings and 2:45 to 3:45 in the afternoons. We have some good news. Our officer that has been out of workers' comp for the past 15 months returns on Monday. So
Remember how the city is
he's
laid
on
out?
an FTO program, just to make sure a few things have changed. We're going to be testing for the vacancy that we have we're going to have to promote, so that'll leave a patrol position vacant. So we're testing on the 31st here at City Hall, and I'm working with Clear Channel. They're going to put an ad up on the big digital sign for us as well. We've got it advertised on TML and social media right now. We're also going to be interviewing for internally for supervisors, sergeant position on September the 1st. And the only other thing I have is we had some landscaping out front here in City Hall relocated thanks to a sleepy driver this morning. He knocked down our new pygmy palm tree that was installed back when they put the sign in. But we got lucky, he fell asleep at the wheel, went off into our ditch, crossed over Bell, hit the electrical pole there, knocked out power south of here, and but it stopped him from going to the pump, so we're glad that light pole was there. He's supposed to be okay. They did transport him as a precaution. Just fell asleep. Tired plant worker, I guess. That's all I have.
Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. Are there any items that you would like to remove from the consent agenda?
I had a request that all the exhibits, like the ones we were handing out tonight, and then we were handed out at the last meeting, be included in the minutes, so they make sense, I was saying, that we will talk about.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will move to approve the consent agenda with the addition of exhibits from the last meeting and this meeting as well.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, consideration and possible action on insurance quotes renewals for employee benefits.
Mayor, I apologize. My broker had a scheduling conflict, so can you put this with the budget meeting that we're going to have next week for decision making?
Okay.
Do we table it or put it back on?
It was. We'll just put it back on. Yeah. And I think we talked about this last time, but, you know, insurance is going up 27.5%, so it'll be an interesting topic. Okay, item 12, consideration and possible action on Gulf Coast Festival's request for funding for the 2015 Oktoberfest. And Doug is here if we have questions. And there's some information on it under tab 12.
Is this stuff that's funded out of the hotel motel money?
Yes, sir.
Is this the number, there's questions that we have to?
His request is for 30,000, and there's 60 left in city events.
Did we specifically,
Yeah, but it's what we budgeted for, right?
did we specifically budget a dollar amount towards that particular festival? Is it on our budget?
We budgeted 100,000 for city events, and our events are the Office Festival, Oktoberfest. I'm not sure if there's a specific number.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we did.
She has a copy of it. Great. Okay, thank you.
Is this what we budgeted last year, an increase?
2014, we did 23.5, but we did set aside 30,000 for this year.
I make a motion that we accept the contract and the $30,000.
I second.
Is there further discussion?
Will residents be given tickets?
Well, residents, yes, we will be
Thank
operating
you.
over here.
That's the important part.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consideration and possible action on Post Oak publishing ad for 2015 newcomer and relocation guides. And I think we have something in our booklet on that also. Or no, it was handed out.
That's
Right here.
he's not here tonight.
He's not present. It's an annual publication.
So that's not within the year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's been done for
it's
years.
paid for out of his own those advertisements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consideration and possible action on bike around the bay on Saturday, October 17th and Sunday, October 18th. Chief, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, this is our annual event that comes through town. It's actually coming through Kemah on Sunday. I think they're expected to be here. Their estimated time is 10:11 a.m. They have all their own escorts. This is just a matter of formality. They come in, send a kit out on 6th Street and Texas to 5th, and then over the bridge they go.
So is all that closed down to allow them to go through? or-
It's not closed. They have their own escorts. The traffic still moves.
Okay.
So they start off from Baytown, go to Chambers County, come across Bolivar, go to Moody Gardens, and then come over the causeway and work their way through San Leon, Bay Cliff, and then up to us. That's why it's a two-day.
So we for sure will block, like businesses where
They're pretty quick going through town. They've been going through town for 6-7 years, and I've never heard of an issue.
A motion to approve.
I'll second it as long as I don't have to write it.
I don't know. Now further discussion. It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, consideration and possible action on tax rate to be considered for adoption at a future meeting and set 2 public hearings if rate is considered higher than the effective tax rate. Barbara, you want to take this one?
Sure. There's a summary sheet in your packets on the tax rate information. Our effective rate came back a little bit lower than our current tax rate. The budget that we went over at the last meeting is based on our current tax rate. Every year when we look at adopting a tax rate, if we go above the effective rate, we're required to hold 2 public hearings and publish that in the paper. So what council needs to decide tonight is what rate we're going to consider. We'll hold hearings and we'll adopt that tax rate at a later date in September, but we can't adopt anything higher than what we publish in the paper. So usually what we've done in the past is we've published both rates. And then when we
The current and the effective, or the effective and rollback?
show what we
Yeah,
publish.
so I think it's, go ahead and schedule the public hearings, and if we feel a need to have to go there, then we'll cover.
Right,
If
well,
we
we-
don't have to go there, then it's just a new point.
Exactly, yes. What we'll do is, we'll publish the public hearing dates for the September 2nd council meeting, and then we'll have to hold a separate special meeting. We can do it on the 9th, either before or after KCDC, and then the 16th, hopefully, we'll be ready to adopt our budget and our tax rates.
So is everyone okay with the special?
And to that motion, I'll add you're saying we had two, I thought we was just did the rollback rate, but we'll show the effective rate and the rollback rate so that we leave ourselves the option, whatever it is we need to do. After the rollback rate. That's the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. So if we do the 9th, trying to think, KCDC starts at 6. And I hate for us to publish 7 because it's a hearing, right? So we would have to hold it right at 7 if they're not finished. So any comment on time?
My experience has been hearings are pretty short.
Oh, yeah, it'll be short, but I just hate to interrupt KCDC in order to do it.
We could delay it if you had to, it'd be very well.
Delay at 7:30 or something?
Could we, it's already been published at 7.
I haven't published for the tax rate. I've only published for the budget.
Well, what if we go at 6? Because we probably can finish very quick.
Right,
And then let them
Yeah, makes sense.
publish them for like 6:30 or something like that. Okay, so let's not forget that.
So on the 9th at 6 o'clock for the tax rate, public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item 16, discussion and possible action on resolution confirming the directors of the Kemah Public Facilities Transportation Corporation pursuant to action taken at the last council meeting and amending the articles of incorporation and bylaws to expand the board of KPFTC from 5 directors to 7 directors to include the entire council and an additional director, and assigning certain duties to the mayor and city secretary for the KPFTC. So Dick, you want to take this one?
Yeah, you, as a council last time directed that we take this action, but we didn't have the resolution ready at that point. We were talking about whether we were going to do it. So what we're bringing forward tonight is an actual resolution to achieve it as of tonight, to expand it from 5 to 7, to name who those people are. We have, I've talked to each one of the various incumbents, and they have resigned so that they can be, the positions can be filled, so that there's no break in the continuity of that, but then we go from 5 to 7. What this does is just set forth the mechanism for doing that, and making it clear that we need to draw straws for 2-year, 3-year terms. But one thing I wasn't clear of from the last meeting, did you want automatic replacement of council member position so-and-so when the election occurs?
Yeah.
So that we don't have to come back and do it again?
Well, I was going to bring that up there about our 3-year terms or whatever. I don't think for the council and the mayor, we don't need that, because as long as you're on council or you're the mayor, you're on this. I mean, it's not going to roll off.
But you will roll off as soon as you lose office, the way we're going to have to do that.
But then you bring on the new council member or the new mayor.
Well, that's right, you could do it that way. It's just, these documents usually have a 2-year or 3-year term or a term of office. You should have a term. I don't see any problem with drawing the term for it, because you should, since it's a separate corporation with a term of office, we ought to be clear what the term is.
Well, could the term be concurrent with your term as council?
I've written something to add to this that will do that, and maybe that'll answer the question. Because I wasn't sure, so I didn't put it in the first draft, but I've got something that achieves that, if that's what you want. It sounds like that's what you do. So can I read that, and then maybe that'll help?
Okay.
It'll be at the end of the first page, at the top of the second page. And henceforth, the holder of the office of mayor or council member of the city of Kemah shall automatically, by position, replace his or her predecessor in that office by position, and shall likewise be replaced when that office holder leaves office without the necessity of further council action. The seventh position shall be, this is the individual, shall be replaced when his or her term expires or a vacancy occurs for any reason, including removal by council, but it shall require council action to fill that vacancy. The seventh position may, but is not required to be a resident of the city. As you said, you wanted either a resident or a business representative. The city council of the city of Kemah, Texas, shall appoint directors not automatically appointed by incumbency as explained herein, and all 7 directors shall hold office for a term of either 2 or 3 years. The director's name shall draw lots, which shall, to determine their respective terms, 4 of which shall be terms of 3 years, and 3 of which shall be terms of 2 years. The director may be removed at any time with or without cause, which is normally as standard, by order of the city council of the city of Kemah, Texas. The mayor of the city shall act as president of the board, and the city secretary shall be the secretary of the board, so long as he or she holds office and is willing and able to act. I think that
You don't need the 2 or 3 year terms, you can do it concurrent with your term on council, right?
we don't need to.
It just sounds confusing, but.
All right, then let's.
We'll never do it. You know, we'll forget about it.
All right. All right, then I'll modify that to where it will be automatic, and that's what we will file in the articles of incorporation. So then,
I understand how we address ourselves. I'm elected, I serve, get beat the next election, I don't serve. That's pretty clear.
right.
But it applies to everybody except the one who's appointed, who has to have a term.
The 7th.
Well, there's only one. There's only one other, so the other one it would apply to being filled would be the one.
And how are we gonna handle the 7th?
You'll have to appoint him or her whenever the vacancy occurs. They'll have a term.
Let's have that one perpetually 2 years, that way we have the opportunity to.
2 years for the 7th member?
To switch that person out with some, or have them reappoint.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because there's several interested in that position. And
Okay.
So with this, we're not going to elect officers?
You will at some point, but what this does, all this does now is make sure that it does state that the mayor will be the president of the organization. Other than that, it doesn't designate who the officers are. That's usually a function of the board itself.
which we could have as a future.
Why don't we, there's only, the secretary is going to be handled appropriately by the city secretary, and the only other officer of note, because the treasury is handled by staff or us. I mean, if we wanted to name a vice president, we can name that as mayor pro tem, because they'd be presiding at that meeting. If the mayor is absent, they'd be presiding at the council meeting, so they'd also be presiding at that meeting too.
So what do you suggest?
To name vice president as the mayor pro tem. That way it will function the same way as the mayor pro tem.
Do you want to do that in this, or you want to do it internally when you're?
No, I think it needs to be part of it, so it's clear.
It makes it simple that way, because they'll be presiding whenever they preside.
All right. All right, then the mayor will be the presiding officer and the president, and the mayor pro tem will act as the vice president.
Yeah, and that'll always be the case, no matter what who that person is.
All right.
And then, I like your idea of the 2 years for the seventh circle. And then,
For the one seat. Yeah.
which I think we've,
And so when we say, and assigning certain duties to the mayor and city secretary, has any of that changed?
No. No.
So,
No, it would be, this.
I have a question.
Sure.
While I'm not opposed to the way this reads, the motion was made as a resident, not a business representative. Is that okay to change it between the meeting and now? I know that's being nitpicky, but just asking.
Sure, if you do it tonight, you would in effect amend what was done before. And I thought that's the way I understood it, but what did you intend it to be?
Well, I had just said resident, but this
Oh.
is fine. Like I said, I'm not opposed to this, I just didn't.
There was some discussion of a business representative too, who didn't have to be a resident, I thought.
Previously, we did have a business representative on there, and then we pulled him off and saying it had to be a resident.
Well, the original articles said they all need to be residents. This changes that. This makes that one change. Otherwise, since you got the rest of them as city council members, they have to be residents, so they wouldn't be on city council. So,
I prefer the broader definition, just the same way we do for KCDC. If this works as it's supposed to, and Mr. Goodwin might be able to let off some thought on that too, this is an operational kind of board. If we bring in someone that has operation of parking facilities or specific transportation capacity that's either business representative of the city and can bring that to that board as a managing board, I think that's a useful capacity to have. And if they live half a mile outside of Kemah and it's still a business resident, it seems unfortunate that we would lose the potential, at least for expertise, of someone we might want to have. I think the broader definition is definitely possible.
okay.
While I have that open as well, is the wording for this, since we're being nitpicky, does it matter to say 7 to include the entire council and 1 additional director? Because the mayor's not technically council, is he? Should you say council, entire council and mayor and 1 director? Or is it, does that?
Where are you?
But in the definition of this, the resolution, expand the board from 5 directors to 7 to include the entire council and 1 additional director. Because the entire council is 5.
I think
I mean, that's a nitpicky thing. It doesn't matter. I'm okay with that.
I'm not worried about it because we've named what they are.
It's in here, the mayor's in the directive, so I
Yeah.
think it's clear. I just wanted to care whether or not it's said that.
You hear it interchangeably. Sometimes people talk about the council did this and that includes the mayor. Sometimes it's mayor and council, I agree, but this makes it clear by saying who is who and what position. I don't think there's anything to worry about there. All right, so we'll take out any reference to the drawing of lots or drawing straws for a position. We will add a 2-year term for the person who is not a city council person or mayor. And otherwise, the language I read will be what's in this resolution, correct? Okay. Then I think that's what you have to do.
Motion to approve with those amendments.
Second.
I'm going to have to rewrite what I wrote because I had on the amendment itself that goes to the Secretary of State. I'll take care of that and I'll get it back for your signature if I had the other language in it. So I'll redo that. But what we're passing says do it the way it will be changed to.
And before we vote, just one more discussion item. How do we want to fill the 7th position? Do we want to take, advertise and take resumes, or how do we want to proceed with that?
Well, we don't have students out there.
He's right over here.
Unless we feel like we have an operational need to have that person in place, within the next month, I think I wouldn't mind, since the mayor has a proclivity for full inclusion and taking resumes and that kind of thing.
You don't leave that vacant and specify that.
Again, I guess we'll follow some set procedure with moving, of course, with all reasonable speed to fill the vacancy, so we have that.
We just file it that says that that's the position, but at this time it's not being filled and it shall be vacant until filled by council member.
I'm sorry, since you did, there was one more thing I wanted to ask you about. You said you talked to each of the board members, but as they're a sitting board already in existence, do they have to meet formally to agree to take this action?
No, they're individually resigning from their position.
Okay, so they're agreeing to individually resign.
It's not collective action. If we did do that and have them vote to approve this, it'd be different. But what we're doing is.
Having them resign, and when we fill the seats, we're choosing to make these.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
So we'll leave that spot vacant with what we filed and make it clear that we have 6 members of the 7-member board in place, right?
Okay, further discussion? It's been moved and second that we approve with modifications the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 17, discussion and possible action on the call for an election in November for the voter approval of the Kemah Transportation Facility. And Barbara, could you comment? Could you comment on if we do choose, the council chooses to hold an election in November, would you comment on your comments that you got from Sarge on that?
Sure, I included the email in the packets as well. I called the county election division because if we hold an election, that's who we have to contract for because the city doesn't have the equipment to do that ourselves. There is a November election coming up. We could participate in it, however, in order to participate, we would have need to sign up by August 7th. He said we're kind of pushing it a little bit. Drop dead date is the 26th. However, we would have to have everything finalized and approved by then, and to them including our ballots and the languages approved and everything. And I was just asking if we had to have an ordinance to order the election, which we do, so that would either require us to have emergency meetings prior to get all this done by that deadline of next Wednesday on top of everything else we're trying to do, or put it on to put it in our May election.
It was the only two available days for the uniform election days.
The cost for us to have our election, which I noticed in our last budget, was $12,000. That's usually what it's running. What they do is they take the expenses and kind of divide them among the communities that are participating. And since there's less communities that participate in November, we will have a larger expense as well. So.
I asked for this to be on the agenda based on a lot of residents asking about this transportation facility and the election that they feel was promised, and that was one of my questions to you. I remembered an amount of around $13,000 for our last election. I was going to ask if that would be equitable, but it'd probably be more actually.
I want to ask Barry, if we were to put this off for an election, how would that impact?
Well, we have a complicated set of legal circumstances. The city and its several entities have entered into contracts with Gulf Coast Center. Based on those contractual relationships, the Gulf Coast Center is committed to spending $600,000 on a project that the city seemingly at that time wanted to move ahead with. If the development of this center was going to be predicated on an election, Gulf Coast Center would not have spent $600,000 on developing the terminal, which the city urged it to do with great dispatch. So I think that should City Council decide that it wants to, I mean, it's extremely complicated. If the City Council decides that the project is now going to be subject to an election, which is fine, it raises the issue of an anticipatory breach of contract. And we spent a lot of money, time, and effort, as you know, on decisions. Now, those decisions may not be agreed with by everybody, but nevertheless, they were decisions made by elected officials at that time, and Gulf Coast Center took action upon it. So it would be, I think, a very difficult situation for the Gulf Coast Center to could proceed with the project on the basis that now it's a speculative project based on what a future election might determine. And certainly, you know, it raises all kinds of issues. Now, I don't, you know, I haven't researched enough to know what the legal ramifications are for the city, reimbursements to the federal government and things of that nature, but that would have to be considered, because unlike other projects where, because of unforeseen conditions and circumstances, a project that has been pursued may have to change, may have to go to another location, may have to seek different development, and therefore additional monies that get spent to redesign it because of, you found an old cotton gin or something, you know, that the environmental reviews didn't find. This would be an actual affirmative breach by the elected officials of Kemah. And so I'm not in a position tonight to really give you my advice on what that consequences might be, but certainly all of, I mean, you just talked about the board of an entity that was created solely for the purpose of developing a transportation center that you may vote to defer to a public vote, and it may become then a moot issue either in November or May. The other thing is timing. There's also increased costs that occur because of delays inherent. So it's a highly difficult, complicated situation. But I think, you know, depending on the vote that you're about to take, we can sort of cross that bridge when we get to it. I would have to go to the Gulf Coast Center Board of Directors next week and advise them that we're in a situation where any further effort or expenditure of funding on this project is putting more capital at risk than the capital that has already been expended. And so I think there's a lot of consequences to it, but it's up to you as elected officials to determine what's best for the city. We have a project that we brought to you because you asked us actually to do it that seemed to make sense from transportation, parking, 146 improvement, a lot of traffic's going to be pumped through here. We were able to get funding to accomplish it with, outside of the city hall component, no expenditure on the part of the city of Kemah. I have an amendment that I've worked with city attorney on that clarifies language that was of concern in the last meeting that indicates that the operating and maintenance cost of the terminal is the responsibility of the Gulf Coast Center, not the Kemah Public Facility Transportation Corporation. So I think we've tried to address certain concerns about costs that have been raised and discussion about how much revenue will be generated from parking. You know, planners have numbers and they have projections, but projections of what may occur. But from the standpoint of the position of Kemah, as long as you don't have responsibility for maintenance and operating costs associated with the garage, you know, it's up to, I think, the joint venture of Kemah and the Gulf Coast Center to try to make it as successful and generate as much revenue as possible. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think that's very well. I'm not going to get into longer. I tried to repeat again what I said at the beginning of this, but one of the items that was discussed tonight, or was brought up as an issue to follow what Mr. Kuhn said, is there's a specific amount of money lost, at least theoretically. Let's say that there are no net revenues. Let's say that it operates in a hole. Let's say Gulf Coast Center loses money on the bus work, but on the maintenance operation, that there's never any net revenue from parking, just say zero. Okay? As unrealistic as that is, this is how, in my mind, I balance how this works out. What we're trying to solve on our worst days, however many days a year that is, and when they're bad, we all know what they are, do we want to try to solve our parking problems? To me, this wasn't the amount we're losing from Landry's as a parking revenue thing. This was solving a problem that we've stared at for 15 or 20 years. When we say things are crazy down here, we risk becoming a victim of our own success because we can't park enough people, and after a while, the message gets out, there's no sense going to Kemah, you will get stacked up, it is a pain, it's not worth the effort of going down there, because you go stack up over the bridge, no one's going to find a place to park, and sooner or later they find somewhere else to go. When your bread and butter is making sure that people come here, they stay happy, they come back, this is a problem we all agree we have to solve. We've never had the money to solve it effectively on our own because we're a pay-as-we-go city. We live on a relatively small budget, so we haven't had the opportunities or found the appropriate partners to address transportation issues. But we found it in this. The fact that we get to help solve a regional issue, improve our air quality, all of the other things we get tossed in as a bonus is nice, but we're not worried about this as a money-making venture, what we lose from Landry's. We're worried about solving the parking problem. That's what we get out of this. That's what we ought to be thinking about this. And when we put that at risk, we are setting ourselves back to square one, because I guarantee you, if we make the mistake of doing what this vote could potentially set us down to do, we needn't bother to go back to Houston Galveston Area Council again, or ever seek another partner to deal with this issue on our own, because there'll never be another one.
Good.
Maybe so, Mr. Wiggins, but when you sit up here, you're trying to solve a different set of problems. Right now, I think the parking problem is worth solving. And I don't want to go back and forth with you because that's not appropriate for what we're doing here. But in one of your things, you spoke to me directly and said, offer me cash. I said, find another Kemah. Because here's where, yes, 1,800 people. How many people in Texas have 1,800 people in a 25-person police department? Zero. Because there's no other 1,800 people town that supports 3 million plus visitors a year. That's why we have 25 people on the police force. They cost 50% of our budget. Because we have to have them. Okay? So we're not the same as everyone else. And you're right, we're never going to be the same as them, and we don't want to be. But we want to keep what we've got going, and we want to look to the future, and we want to take a small risk to make sure that we don't cut off that future. And when we solve the parking problem and we do it for no money, yeah, we might lose a little parking revenue. I'll live with that to solve the parking problem. And the fact the Gulf Coast can ride along and help our region is a nice bonus. And the fact that it costs us nothing, we will never get a deal like that again, anywhere. I just don't even, it's hard for me to imagine otherwise, other than the general, I don't like it, it makes me feel bad thing, that when you look at this on paper with logic, you can run across something that says this is not the best deal we will ever get to solve a problem we all admit we had. And I can't fathom why we continue to do this, regardless of the fact that there are some folks here who have a deeply, some people sitting in these chairs have a deeply felt reason to dislike this project. Okay, fair. Gosh, I don't know what it is we're thinking for that's ever going to be the magic bullet that helps us solve this problem. We've tried for 20 years and we haven't found it. And here it is, and we're about to go, well, never mind, go away. We'll look for a better one someday. It's unfathomable to me that we think that this is a problem we can solve some other way. Thank you, Mr.
I'd like to ask the mayor what his position is on this.
Well, I'm gonna, it's a little unusual, but I think this is an important thing that we probably need to open it up to the audience at least for a few minutes to comment. And it looks like Pepper's back here would like to comment. At least she's standing up. So if you do, could you come up here? We're very
I've been writing letters to the city of Kemah for over 5 years when Matt was mayor. And I worked at the Kemah Visitor Center where I had the opportunity to see the traffic and the parking. And we don't have a parking problem, we have a traffic problem. And y'all said that we could vote, and that's all we're asking is let us vote. That is all we're asking. Because we don't have a parking problem, we have a traffic problem. And if you think that people are going to stop and ride some mass transit, well, do you get up and leave at 6:30 in the morning? Because I do. And what is going by both ways, both directions, are trucks with welding machines and stuff like that on them, and they're going to the plants. They're not going to go to Galveston Medical Center or to downtown Houston. So I'm just asking y'all to let us vote because we have a traffic problem, not a parking problem. And I worked down there on the weekends for 4 years and I saw, and we don't have a parking problem except maybe, I don't know, 15 days. Thank you.
just a few minutes. You've already had your say.
I think we're already out of contract on the legal issues because when the development and facilities agreement was signed, we had 180 days to complete it, to get the management agreement in place. They've already brought in a contract that shifted $10 million worth of cost to us. This printout, if Wayne will take the time to take a look at it, Wayne, there's no money at the end of that rainbow. And there's nobody in town that benefits from that parking garage except me and Tillman Fertitta. The rest of the time, it's an empty building. And it's going to stay empty. And I think I think I put 20 days down on my deal that we might feel.
That's fine, that's fine.
I mean,
Not very many.
but yeah, the money doesn't work. And at some point, if you go through those contracts, they can leave. Gulf Coast Center can leave with 90 days notice to the Federal Transportation Administration. And guess what we've got? We've got a building with $430,000 worth of maintenance and operations and overhead. And I'm not making these numbers up. I got them out of their proposal. I've asked the city and I've asked Gulf Coast Center for a copy of the facilities and development of facilities agreement. Executed. The effective date is off of all of them. That thing is expired. We're under no obligation. Their lawyers should have done their homework. You know, maybe this is the right thing to do. But I tell you what, the numbers I've gotten are all over the place. Mr. Goodman has, and keep in mind, I'm not accusing Mr. Goodman of misrepresenting anything, because I guarantee you he didn't put that book together. He had somebody in his office do it. But we've got 4 sets of numbers in there, and the high number is impossible because it takes the thing to be full 110% every day. You'd have to park 550 cars a day in there to get to the high number, and I'm using their expense numbers, and I don't think their expense numbers are correct. You've got administration, $35,000. Now, is that the people who are going to manage the parking garage? They're going to take the money, they're going to do all that for $35,000? That doesn't even pay a minimum wage person to be there the whole time the thing's open. So these numbers need to be fleshed out. And if y'all think it's a good idea to go run through naked through the weeds without the numbers, go ahead. But you know, we've got 2 council members up here that want to put it to a vote, Robin and Wanda. We've got Wayne and Bill up there that are filling out terms. Wayne's got his house up for sale. You know, I want somebody who's got skin in the game. I benefit from the parking garage. I control 40% of the land around the parking garage. Why don't I want it? It messes up my town.
Other comments from the audience?
Most of y'all know me, I'm Howard Phillips. I've lived here in Kemah all my life. I've served on the police department here, served on the fire department here, and have a business here. Born and raised here, 64 years old. She hit the nail right on the head. It's not a real parking problem, it's a traffic problem here. Traffic problem's gonna get eased somewhat when they get the new 146 done. Parking should be taken care of by the business people, not by the city. It's not going to benefit the city, in my opinion. I've also studied this, and I understand the numbers. I'm not real good at that, but I do understand what Matt is saying. I also understand that at the last meeting, they brought forward and pointed out in the agreements that they already have that nobody understood what they was reading, and we were set up in that, and it needed to be changed. And the council realized that and saw that and decided, yeah, we need to change that. How much more is there that we do not understand that needs to be changed? What I understand is, if it's a good deal, then why are you afraid to let the people vote on it? Because you can get out and you can campaign for it, just like we can get out and campaign against it. But to be threatened that we're going to have to pay money to a contract that doesn't exist, I'm not for that either. And I think we have good lawyers that can defend us on that. And I think that that's what we need to do, is let the people vote for it. If it passes, then if it turns out to be a great deal, the council, y'all did a great job. But if it turns out that the people don't want it, then the council needs to represent the people, because you're giving up the city's property that belongs to the people for 40 years. And you're only going to be on the council not near 40 years. Probably won't even be here in 40 years. I know I won't, I'll be dead and gone, but that's, you know, understandable, and I'm sure a lot of them are waiting for that to happen real soon, but that's okay.
Bye.
While I'm here, I want to be respected, and I respect the council, and always will. I respect the police departments, always will. I respect all representatives. And I will abide by their wishes, but I wish they would think and abide by the people that they represent wishes as well, and let us vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I've lived in this town 49 years. I grew up right over here on Face Street. My father was here, Howard Phelps was here when Carla came through. It took about a fourth of this town out. I was here when Alicia came through 32 years ago. Where your parking garage is going to be was under 6 feet of water for 2 weeks. A few years back, we had Ike came through. That was a category 2. Alicia was a category 3. When we do any building down there, these are the things that we need to look at and consider thinking about. I don't know how much of the council was here for any one of those 3 storms, but I've been here for 2 of them. And these are some of the things that we need to think about. Because during Ike, piers in that marina came off those floating pylons. They had a tidal surge that came up, and a few of those piers that securing those boats actually floated off those pylons and was adrift. Thank you.
Further discussion from the audience?
May I say something, please?
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate everything that everyone said. Yes, Les, I've been here through all of those. I was even here in Carla, so. And I don't intend to be here. I'm going to be gone with Howard whenever we have our next go around, when the 40 years is up. I certainly do not feel like that the contracts that we signed, since there was so much discrepancy in them, I feel like that somehow or another, and that we did not meet the requirement dates, that we should be held responsible for those. I too feel like that it is a traffic problem. I live here in the area. Wayne does not. He lives in Kemah Oaks, and no, nothing to you, Les, but because you came from over on this side, you know what it's like. If you don't hear, if you're not here every day and seeing it, you think that it's a parking problem. It is not a parking problem. It is a traffic problem. 146 coming through are adding an additional turn lane and an additional traffic light and putting part of our area in a one-way street area will help alleviate a lot of that problem. I ride my golf cart around constantly. That parking lot is never full. And that's even on Fridays and Saturdays. If there is a parking problem, it would be for the boardwalk. It's not for us. And I'm sorry, but I have totally looked at everything in the last few months, and I don't see where, like I said, I've lost the confidence in what is going on. And I feel like that before we tie up a piece of our city's property and tie up our city for 40 years, which I'm not going to be here to see it, I feel like that we should have the input and be doing it for everybody in the city, the majority, not just for a handful.
Can I add one more thing? When we say the items are out of date, when we think about how that will be interpreted or something to come to pass on this, you got to think about what the cause and effect of that will be. Yes, we didn't meet our dates. Why is that? Because the city made us stop and slow down. We were on target to meet our dates. The people, our partners, were doing their job. We all of a sudden said, now we have to sit down and stare at our enablement for a while to figure out whether or not we wanted what we asked you for. And frankly, that's not going to relieve us of culpability when we renege on the things that we were in order and in good faith, and they were in good faith trying to do with us. So as far as partnerships go, yes, our documents are out of date. That's why, because we made them out of date. So to me, that seems like
and they died on their own.
Yes, but when it comes up to who breached it, they were on track to meet their dates, but we did not, because we told them to stop doing it until we decided what we wanted. That's a little bit different than saying, well, nobody paid attention to it, and we wouldn't have met our dates for no particular reason. We didn't meet our dates because we were at fault for making it slow down. So, yeah, that's easy to go to poo-poo, but when it comes down to who's going to be culpable for things that happen, that's not going to be an easy one for us to slip slide. And I won't cast aspersions. Everyone here has a right to change their mind, to think about things differently. I guarantee you this, for the rest of the time I'm in this seat, forever how long that is, when I'm thinking about something that impacts the city for 40 years, I don't ask the questions 2 years after I get involved with it. I ask the questions then. If we wanted to have this vote, we should have had this vote when we were able to do so, not 2 years down the line after we've already gotten partners and moved down the tracks. My concern is when we think we can go back and do this with no loss or risk to ourselves, what we as a council, if we're voting for something and we haven't thought about the fact that it's going to affect us for 40 years, wasn't that our primary job? I wasn't here when that vote was taken, but I can't imagine looking in the mirror and saying, geez, I voted for something, but I didn't really notice it was 40 years. I mean, this was our job to do. If there was questions to be asked, if there were stones to be unturned, if there were pitchforks and torches to hand out, then fine, do it when it made sense. We have gone too far. They have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have said what we wanted, and now we're trying to decide whether we want it. This is just, it's almost Twilight Zone. I don't grasp it. The time to do all this stuff did exist. That time is past. If there are some folks that don't like it, I grasp that. But doggone it, it's a little late to start thinking about, gee, should we have really thought hard about something that affected our city? I think it's a monstrous problem. I think it solves an important thing. But gee, we should have asked those questions when we had the chance. Now is not the time.
Wayne, you said in November 1st of 2012 that you were putting it on the ballot.
I'll accept they said that, man. I don't remember that specifically. I won't disagree with it. I know when this first came up, I wanted everything fleshed out when we were talking about it. I should have been a councilman, right? I would have said that at the beginning of the process. If we think it's important, if there's a lot of folks that think this isn't, then that would have been a reasonable time to do it. This is 3 years later. I wasn't here during the time that it was alleged.
That's our point.
So, but the whole point is, I mean, I don't want to get into the legalities of that. That will start me arguing with something that's in my opinion a moot point, and I think our city attorney's explained that too. That the legalities is not the important part. It's that there was a time to do that. This wasn't done at that time. We can't get 3/4 of the way through something and then decide when we have partners and they have spent money and we have made representations that all of a sudden we can just pretend like we never thought about it hard and now we want to start looking at our neighborhood.
So you want to consider making the same mistake the previous council made?
Well, that was what I was going to say. I do want to clarify one thing, especially to Ms. Kendrick. I took every vote that I ever had on this council in opposition to this project from day one. And I've never changed my stance on that. And when I was up for election this last time, one of the things that I did say at the night we had our candidates forum was that after it did pass and I lost in that effort, I was going to take my votes moving forward to make those who did vote for it accountable for the monies spent and etc. So I wanted to clarify that, and that's what I've been doing since then. I campaigned 2 years prior to this last election, and I never heard anybody in favor of this. But I do feel like once the board votes on something that, and I lost that vote, I was in the minority, it kept moving forward. But the next thing, Rhonda asked for our mayor's opinion, and he opened it up to your comments. I'd still like to hear his opinion, since he hasn't given us that yet. And I would also like to make note that one of the things that stalled this since the last election is our mayor wanting a different elevation and look to the building. Otherwise, it would have already probably gone further than this. Yes, I can't call him, sorry.
Let me comment. You know, this has been going on for several years now, and I think I've been to at least 3 campaigns where I've knocked on doors, and you know, I got to the point where this is a hot topic, and it just kind of like doesn't go away. But what's interesting to me is it is a hot topic, but where's everyone at tonight? Where was everyone at when we had our renderings? And so that concerns me. And you know, at this point in time, and Barry, I know this can't happen, but you know, we're on schedule to supposedly start construction in January. So, you know, everyone assumes that if we voted in November, which we have to really get going to make that happen, but we could get that going and vote on it in November, and you know, everyone assumes, I guess it's going to fail, it's in this room, but you know, it might pass, and then we go on, we start construction in January, just like we planned. And so kind of, you know, folks, I've spent a lot of time on this personally and professionally, and got beat up for trying to get more transparency in this whole situation. And the comment about 40,000, who's going to reimburse that? Well, what we had going was 8,200 square feet that had been approved, which we would have had to add another 140,000 to the coffers to keep that going. So yeah, it cost us 40,000 to find out we had another mistake out there that just got approved because the council at this time tried to slam things through. So those are my feelings. Barry, I got to finish here, okay? I get to finish here. So, hey, if council wants to vote to vote on it, let's find out what the public wants.
Amen.
Commuter parking ride at this location. That's what drove the terminal, not parking. Coincidentally, if we have a chance to generate revenue from parking, that's fine. Now, anyone can pull numbers out and argue with what experts have put together. I rely on experts that review experts' information, and I rely on those experts that really vet projects before they commit substantial funding to have reviewed this thoroughly. I'm not an expert in travel demand and everything that's been done in this. Others may feel they're experts, but this project's been really vetted through the process through which funding is approved. So I wanted to, we need to, in my opinion, understand that the Gulf Coast Center is trying to be a good partner for Kemah and trying to allow Kemah to build a city hall in the terminal, which is a great opportunity. Some may not feel that's an opportunity, but we've moved down the road, and we were more than willing to sort of put a hiatus on some serious work to complete construction documentation to let the project be revetted. So I don't want anyone in this room to think that the Gulf Coast Center or the Goodman Corporation is putting a gun to the heads of Kemah. We're not. If you don't want this project, we're going to find another location for the project. It's as simple as that. I don't know that the Gulf Coast Center board, though, is going to be too chipper on the idea of waiting out an election after they've already spent a substantial amount of money based on representations by the city. With respect to agreements that have run out, the only lapse of any agreement that could be argued is that the management and operating agreement was not executed within a certain time period. Well, we have an item on the agenda that cures that if the Gulf Coast Center next week feels similarly. So that's not, you know, if you want to say we don't have any agreements, that's fine too. But all of those issues can be cured. We have language that one of the inconsistencies among documents is who's responsible for the operating and maintenance of the terminal. We have an amendment that clears that up, that clearly states it's the Gulf Coast Center, not Kemah Public Facility Transportation Corporation. So I think it's important in the context of a lot of the discussion here tonight to understand that we're not trying to force a project on you. You asked us to come and build this project. And whether you agree with those that asked for it, that signed agreement, voted to execute agreements, I'm sure the next city council will totally disagree with almost every decision you've made since you've been in office. That's the way politics are. That's the way but it's important that the city realize that the Gulf Coast Center is just trying to be a good partner. That's all they're trying to do.
I think these are remarkable patients. I'm much more concerned with our relationship with HGAC, which unfortunately is outside of that discussion, but that's what I truly think we're missing. And I just can't stress that enough, because that's who we go back to if we ever want to be a grantee for moving and transportation. The risk of that is that we've had this discussion in my mind that this is why they reported those categories. I don't know.
Just a quick question. Outside of the expenses for City Hall, what is the expenses for the city for the parking facility?
Nothing.
That's what I had been told.
I mean, we would not have gone ahead and designed a facility without a lease agreement, because that lease value enables us to provide local match in lieu of an entity like the city having to come up with hard cash dollars. We're talking about the transportation center.
Right.
So without the ground lease that secures the value, and 40 years is federal prescribed. It's when we build a facility like this, that's going to be hardened for hurricanes and everything else. It's got a 40-year life. At the end of that 40 years, the city owns the facility, free and clear. And then we sign a development and facilities agreement. And indeed, if we collectively do not move ahead, those agreements are null and void, and we'll find another location for the terminal, and the city can deal with whatever mobility problems it has to deal with.
And if I heard you right, Gary, if we were to vote to put this to an election, there's a chance then the Gulf Coast Center would just pull out at that point.
Oh, I can't tell you what their board would do, but I think their board would question whether a reversal of course by the city such as that would really be the partner they want to move ahead in the future with.
Understood.
Dick, you say the exposure for? No, we've still got the provision in the development agreement that it's a three-legged stool, which we talked about before. You've got the lease, you've got the development agreement, and the one to be done is the operation and maintenance agreement, which provides that if we don't enter into that, then none of the agreements are enforceable.
And it can still fall apart at that agreement.
If we don't come to terms on that agreement, that's one of the things that's in here. This extends the time to do that to December the 1st on the next item on the agenda. It also clarifies that section 6.2B, which was some ambiguity, it needs to be cured, but this cures the problems. And then the only question is, do you want to do it? Because, yeah, I think we have contractual protection with the fact that we have 2 out of 3 of the agreements in place, but the third one's not done yet, and it clearly says that if it doesn't get done, and we don't have, like you said, we're out of contract. So.
I would like to say that I offer Mr. Goodman my apologies if I've insinuated that he's done anything, because I realize that this gentleman is only the person that's bringing us our information and working with us. I don't feel like that he has purposely misled us in any way whatsoever. If anyone has misled us, I think it was our previous leaders, and I, for one, was misled. And in fact, Mr. Kerber, I believe if you'll remember, on April 15th, you stood up for your 2 minutes of making comments to the council and said that we had had a very good meet the candidates night, and that he thought it was a very good idea, and that you liked the way everything went, but that you were concerned that at that meeting that we had at the community center, that you had heard and that you were hearing that there were a lot of decisions that were being made before it ever got to the council chambers here to be actually voted on. And that, you know, if that was true, that it all needed to be looked into. And you heard that right, because there were a lot of decisions that I feel like was being made before we actually got into councils. And when you tried to ask, the previous administration was not as transparent with what was going on and the documents and so forth. We didn't really get a good look at the documents. Things were not being made transparent. If you asked Rick or if you asked Bob or you know, some questions about it, you were told, don't worry about it, we got it covered. We were not given answers. And that all goes into it. And that's why I'm saying that I don't feel like that everybody was given all the answers. There was not the transparency that should have been put out there, not only to our residents, but even to the council. And I certainly don't feel like our city hall needs to be put into a flood zone. That is absolutely does not make good sense.
Wanda, in response to what you heard me say, I think you're partially there. I think what I asked in my 2 minutes was that if there was evidence that there was walking forums, making decisions prior to coming to this board and making them in a public forum, then I urge the mayor to start an investigation to have those meetings prosecuted. That's all I asked for. I don't know if there was ever an investigation done. Well, that was my comment. If it was being done, it needed not to be done. If it was being done, it needed to be investigated, just like everything else. So that's, that was the intent. And as far as the city hall is concerned, I don't have any big heart burn over whether the city hall goes there or not.
Mr. Goodman made a quote back in August the 6th, standing right there. And this is, I'm quoting him, in our latest development profile of the Kemah Transportation Center, depending on the joint use of the facility, we estimate that it will generate a net revenues of $500,000 to $800,000 a year. What that means is all of the O&M costs of the facility, Kemah Shuttle, future transit connectivity to pay for before we get to net revenues. We detrimentally relied on this information. I gave you you have an example up there why the $800,000 is an impossibility. So y'all detrimentally relied on the representations of Gulf Coast Center. We're off the hook. Let us vote. If it passes, I'll do everything I can to make it successful. I'm going to vote against it. I'm going to be against it. But if it passes, I'll be for it.
I want to just clarify When I became mayor, yeah, I did slow the transportation center down. And that was really kind of a request that was, I heard throughout the campaign. But I just didn't arbitrarily do it. I asked Barry, we worked it out together. I said, when do you plan to start construction? And he said, January. So then we started talking about the pieces that still needed to be done. And we agreed there was time for us to vet this thing. And really, the people that were on that committee, we worked hard to go through and come up with the design of City Hall that really functioned properly. And you know, we've had the last 2 meetings pretty much filled up with transportation centers, so we're all learning a lot. And probably some of us may realize that over the last 2 or 3 years that you know, we made some decisions that maybe weren't that good for the city. And so again, you know, November is just right around the corner. And I do understand this, you know, inflation right now on construction is running 10 to 12% a year, so basically 1% a month. So there are some consequences, because I don't see you guys continuing to work on the working drawings if there's a chance that it doesn't pass. So again, I just want to clarify, I'm proud of what we did the last couple of months, getting this out in the open and letting the public have some say-so in what was going on. And I'm sorry, I felt like it was just being crammed down our throat, but it wasn't you, Barry. It was the people up on this side that were cramming it and doing it because they didn't want us to get to this point where we're talking about voting on it. So anyway, it's an interesting agenda item tonight, and I hope, however council votes, that you know, trust us. If we don't vote, then we'll do the best we can to make this the best possible, and I'm sure Mr. Wiggins will help us do that if that's what is required. And but at any rate, I think everyone's heart is in the right place up here, trying to do the right thing for Kemah. And you know, sometimes you have to agree to disagree or whatever. So anyway, this is one time when I'm kind of glad I don't have to vote.
I'm still trying to get it straight. You haven't said one way or the other how you want it to go.
And I'm not going to say, because I don't get a vote. You guys get to say. You've all beat up on me the last 3 months. Hey, you don't get a vote. You don't get a vote. So I've explained that I want to make the best we possibly can out of this. And if it's moving forward with it, then we're going to do that. If it's not moving forward, then I'll live with that.
I will say this on behalf of the mayor. Slowing it down has its cost, but in so much as it's brought information out, sometimes that information, not through the mayor's fault, has been inflammatory because we get a bunch of competing things. But by and large, we spend $40,000, we end up with a right-sized facility, we're all happy with it, we learned what we needed to learn, Mr. Wiggins helped us make sure we kept all the appropriate language in our contracts, and we come out of this with a good facility. $40,000 is not chump change, but in the scope and scale of what we're doing, if we ended up with, and that's what I hope would come out of this, better public support, better public understanding, better appreciation of the kinds of decisions and all the time that has been spent on this by the people on this side of the table, so that you'll understand that there's a whole bunch of things that have been done, and it's part of our job representing. And as the mayor said, you can agree to disagree with us, that's fair, but I did want to do one final technical comment, because it was brought by a gentleman speaking and by another council member. If you pay attention to the things that have been told so far, there's no electronics anywhere down on the first floor. All of the parking garage, all the arms, all the electronics, all the stuff that were arranged for that is on the landing up to the second floor there. All the first floor is a dumb floor. So we won't put at risk risk any kind of flooding issues. Everything that's in the mechanical room is up on the second floor. Our council's one above that. So, 6 feet of water. I mean, I suppose you want to say the entire Houston is under 20 feet of water. Well, yes, then our city hall will be in trouble. But under those kinds of things, we have a much worse problem than City Hall. Our entire town will be gone. So, yes, at some point, yes, we will wipe everything off. But we have built this, and that's part of what the arrangement getting further down the design tree has let us do. All the stuff that we need to protect is above any reasonable bound hurricane flood water level. The one that wipes Houston away will take us away. But other than that, I think that will resolve, just because we brought it down more than once. I want to make sure that's okay.
Is there a motion on the floor?
No.
It was.
I don't believe a
No,
motion was ever made.
no, because we opened it up for discussion, which is the way we've been doing things, which is okay. So anyway, is it time for a motion?
I will motion to have the parking facility go to a vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye to go for a vote? Aye.
Okay. Aye to go for a vote, yeah. Okay, and then opposed, same sign?
Nay.
Same sign as aye.
Yeah.
And
I abstain and let the mayor be the tiebreaker.
Yay.
well, I'm saying go to a vote.
Yes!
In order to do that, we're gonna have a pretty quick meeting called to have
So that we can get everything together by the 26th. So we need to plan that, well, we'll get an email out tomorrow sometime, okay? When we can get that set up. But there's some things that we gotta get ourselves before we can have that meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, I'm not sure we need to 18, 19, 20, I'm not sure it makes sense to deal with those tonight. Is there I guess we need, hey Dick?
Yes, I'm sorry.
On 18, 19, and 20, which are on the transportation center, then since we don't need to act on those necessarily tonight.
You should act on 18, which cures the ambiguity and extends the date. That's the contract amendment. That should be acted on.
Okay.
Otherwise, establishing the timetable or going over, and on number 20, you don't need tonight, but I would do 18.
Okay, so
18 extends the time for the operating agreement to December the 1st. Section 2 of it cures the ambiguity about cost. It's in our best interest to cure this.
So we'll move on then to item 18, discussion and possible action on an amendment to the development and facilities agreement between KPFTC and Gulf Coast Center, including an extension of time for performance and authorizing the mayor to sign any contractual change. So Dick, you want to take that?
Yes, we talked about that, but it's in your packet. It's a one-page document that it does those two things. It's number 16, I believe. And it's not.
I don't recall, I don't have anything in our book.
No? All right.
Mr. Good, can I ask you a quick question related to this topic? What will be your, would you prefer that we try to at least do extension of the agreement through December or move? I mean, does it make any sense at this point to move on these items? I don't know what you're going to represent your board, and of course you must be flabbergasted, so I forgive us for that. But
You're asking me what makes sense. It's hard to respond to right now.
right, how to make the best of this very unfortunate situation?
Well, if it were to pass in November, which it could, you need to go ahead and do these things.
Yeah, either way, you need it.
But it's not up to you anymore. It's up to the Gulf Coast Center. In other words, I have to go to their board and tell their board that the city of Kemah.
They were at least 2 or 3 other locations at the time.
Yeah, and tell their board that the city of Kemah has
hot choice topics.
determined. I mean, we have obligations to build a commuter facility, and what you know, it's not easy to shut down your engineers to restart. And so we're not talking about, we're talking about a substantial delay. And what that does is it's going to change the whole profile of the facility, because if we are suffering another $1 million, $2 million, we're already trying to keep costs in line. So, you know, we have to, Gulf Coast Center, we have to probably have some considered discussion about, should we just move to another location, irrespective of what the vote may bring. You know, I mean, we have to have that serious discussion, obviously.
Thank you.
So, you know, you could go ahead and vote for the First Amendment to cure some language inconsistency and extend the, but you know, we could extend the agreement, the time to, but you can't enter into, you can't really negotiate a management and operating agreement before you know what you're going to be building.
That we're not going to deal with that tonight, except this amendment does need to be done.
Yeah, so I would say that if the Gulf Coast Center Board chooses next week to simply not take any action, then we don't have a project. You don't need to go to a referendum. I don't know what, at this point, we're going to do. I don't know what I'd recommend we do at this point. It's, you know, I've got to get some sleep and think about this a little bit.
So
But
I guess
you know,
it behooves us to try to amend it on the thought that somehow or other they will trust us to do a lot of the part.
Yeah, I recommend you vote for this. On this First Amendment to the facility development of facilities agreement.
And Barry, if you would, you know, I think it's important that you try to let them know what's going on here, and that we're 2 months away from getting it settled, and please hang in there with us and get to that point. I really wish you would try to ask them to do that.
If you don't feel like responding, sir, I completely understand.
I really, rarely am I at a loss for words.
Yeah.
But this is one of those occasions where, you know, I need to absorb this. The board relies on us a lot. We're building 4 different facilities for them right now in different cities. You know, had a meeting with Texas City today about some great facilities we're building there. We might move this money to there. So I don't know. I know that there's a need in this area, somewhere in this area, for people that want to get out of their cars and ride transit both south and north. We know that. So I'll express your request that they be patient.
Well, I think out of the 4 that you're going, would have to venture to say that from day one, this has to be the most difficult ones of the 4.
Well, the project is probably more justifiable than many of the projects.
Well,
but you're talking about
just
politically?
the reception. Yeah.
Politically and...
Because I can remember some of the first meetings that you were here that it just wasn't ready, you know.
I think this is, it'll be a new chapter in my book, that's for sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on 18. No, I haven't read it yet. Okay, item 18, discussion and possible action on an amendment to the Development Facilities Agreement between KPFTC and Gulf Coast Center, including an extension of time for performance and authorizing the mayor to sign any contractual change.
This is the same document that was circulated before, when I sent it in, I think it got circulated to council then. It may not have got wound up in this package, but it hasn't changed since we negotiated it. But it does 2 things. It extends the provision that says the date that the management operating agreement must be executed is extended to 300 days from the effective date, or to December the 1st, 2015. And secondly, it cures the ambiguity about cost that we discussed at the last meeting this, Section 2B, which basically, well, what it says here is that there are revenues, and the revenues or expenses come off the top, but if there are no revenues to offset the expenses, then it's the entire expense of the lessee.
So we would
it
be
cures that
voting
problem.
on an extension of time for performance.
And making it clear that the expenses are not city expenses if there aren't revenues to offset the expenses. That's what it said. It also has the $40,000 payable to KP, but by the KPFTC to Gulf Coast Center no later than 30 days after we execute this agreement. That was when they actually spent that money, and so they want the money back. Otherwise, that's it.
I don't think we should do it.
You don't think we should pay?
No, I don't think we should go move forward with any contracts to do anything else until it's been over.
Further discussion?
Well, we incurred a debt with what we,
Well, we may have to pay, I'm not saying that we're not gonna pay it, but I'm just saying that I don't know that we need to go into any more contracts until it's been voted on.
It's in the new contract, it clarifies the existing contract that was wrong and needs to be corrected. It's just, that's why you need to do it.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
I make a motion we authorize mayor to sign.
He moved, I think.
I'm sorry, I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay?
So it's 3-2. Okay, so, how do we handle then 19 and 20, because there's a possibility they come back?
Yeah, you don't have to act on those
Just
tonight.
pass.
Yes.
And,
21, 22 as well. We can pass.
well, we might want to go ahead and act on 22 because, you know, the restrooms at the visitor center are a problem because they should be raised. And so we're looking at potentially maybe moving these to the new Kemah Nature Park, which we haven't officially named, but the 57-acre park, and then adding on to the visitor center to put restroom facilities there that comply, because the restrooms next to Sylvia there, they don't comply either because they're in the flood.
None of them do.
Right. So this is trying to fix a problem that we need to deal with anyway. But if we don't want to deal with it tonight. No? No. Okay, guess what that's.
The mayor's now voting for everybody, no.
Everybody's mind is exhausted.
Yeah, I'm thinking if it's okay with everyone else, we just move down to closing comments. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes, sir.
I move we go to at least 11 this
Oh, you want to put the other record?
Okay, council members' closing comments. Want to start down here, Wanda?
No comment.
Wanda?
Wow. I'm actually glad that this has happened. I think that it'll get us back to being in touch with our residents and our citizens and being there for them. I'm sorry that it's taken the route that it's taken for us to get there, and I apologize for my part in that. But I'm glad two wrongs don't make a right. And if it does cost us some money, and it doesn't come out, you know, it would be better to cost us a little bit now and not get the garage, the parking garage, than to keep going and end up with some big parking garage and a lot of expenses and not and cost the city a lot more than the $40,000. It's an expensive learning experience, I agree, but I don't think it would be wise to make another mistake with it. So I appreciate everyone's efforts and patience and understanding that has pushed and shoved along the way. Thank y'all.
Again, I say what Wanda said, I appreciate everybody's comments and coming out and talking about this issue. I would urge that the city secretary not spend a whole lot of time and money on trying to get an election set up. I don't think we're going to have that. I feel pretty confident that Gold Coast is going to come back and tell us they're finding another party. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of money on it.
But we don't have that ready by the 26th, including translations and ballot language to them. They're not going to handle it for us anyway. So it would be the main election.
That's true. I hate to spend a lot of money on it to find out that we don't have to do it.
Well, right now, we have no choice but to get together in order.
And finally, Mr. Williams, my house is not for sale, but it can be.
Oh, y'all got that drug rehab place.
Sales are up.
Robin,
No comments.
Wayne,
I'll second what the mayor said. Everyone's heart's been in the right place this, as far as I can tell. Never has more money, because I concur with Mr. Kerber, never has more money been lost for a reason so foolish by any city council in my serving memory. And I don't think we're going to get this transportation center. Those people didn't want it. Good job, you win. I guarantee you this, $12 million is never coming our way again. That doesn't matter to anybody. This is a traffic problem. Somehow you think that people come down to the boardwalk and pay a good portion of our bills. It's only because they didn't move fast enough. Instead of because they didn't move fast enough because there was nowhere to park. I guess we're about to find out. I think we made a massive error. And it doesn't matter what the vote is now because it's gone. I believe that. And down in my bones. And we have made a massive mistake here tonight. It was unforced. It was an error that we never did.
mayor comments. Like I said earlier, this has been a hot potato from day one. But you know, I'm an optimist, and I just don't think the Gulf Coast Center is going to just yank this away from us. I think they'll give us a chance to vote on it. I'm just concerned that what we've done here is, you know, we'll have a vote in November, and it'll be a very low voter turnout and not really a consensus of our population. And that's really what I want to see here is, you know, let's hear from people, you know. So people are vocal, but then they don't come out and exercise their right to vote. So anyway, this is democracy, I guess, tonight, and I appreciate everyone coming here. I'm disappointed in the crowd. The one time we needed a good crowd was tonight, I believe. But at any rate, for those that did come and take up the time, I appreciate that. And we have a lot coming up. We've got a budget to put together, and I think that will go fairly well. And you know, at this point in time, we've set aside $1.5 million for our new city hall, and I think we continue to go forward because, again, Robin says that everyone she talked to wasn't for it. Pretty much everyone I talked to was for it. So I've been really interested to see what it is out there. So I look forward to that, and we will make every effort to be on the November election, because that's in mind what we voted for tonight, that we're going to vote on. You know, so we'll do every effort to make that happen. So anyway, thank you, and I will entertain.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.